You may recognize this man. His name is YAKUB, or YAKUB,
Or Jacob.
or YAKUB, or YAKUB, or YAKUB. He lived 6,600 years ago, and if you are white, he is your father. Not only that, you're also Greek, but we'll get to that. YAKUB, as we know him, first appeared in the writings of Wallace Fard Muhammad, the founder of the Nation of Islam, simplified as the NOI, or NOI, which is an offshoot of mainstream Islam with a focus on black nationalism, and was expanded upon by his successor Elijah Muhammad, most specifically in his chapter Making of Devil in his 1965 book Message to the Black Man in America, which outlines the role of YAKUB in making the white devil race. To get the full picture of YAKUB, I would like to share his life story with you. Although the following story is not the same as the original story outlined by the Noi, as it expands upon a few extra plot elements such as the nature of YAKUB's origin. This is the most complete story of YAKUB I can find, and it is my personal favorite iteration. The story of YAKUB begins with aliens and the Hollow Earth. Thousands of years ago, many alien groups came to Earth after leaving their planet. Not much is known about their original planet. We only know that it was destroyed by evil, forcing the aliens to flee. These aliens took up residency within the Hollow Earth, also known as Agartha, as humans were already living on the surface at this time. These surface humans all belonged to the Ebenoid tribe, and white people did not exist. This was around or before 4600 BC. The alien visitors were able to live in the center of the Earth because there is an inner sun, and from this Hollow Earth they were able to establish great civilizations. The most prominent alien group living within the Hollow Earth were known as the Shiuk. The Shiuk are dark-skinned, large-headed humanoids. Inside these large heads, the Shiuk have
what's up? I'm watching
extremely dense
some
brains, making them
crazy
far more
shit
intelligent
right
than
now.
your average human. The Shiuk did occasionally interact with the surface humans, and were seen by humans as mystics, prophets, and sages due to their immense knowledge and odd appearance. The Shiuk had a leader named King Fucor, who had a daughter, Princess Rehia. He also had two
These
brothers.
people lived in Center Earth, by the way. This is about the story of YAKUB in the Nation of Islam. I'm just watching how crazy this shit is. Religion's fucking nuts.
There's Amo and Yushak. Yushak had a bitter jealousy of his brother King Fucor.
Oh, okay.
His other brother Amo loved and married a woman from the surface, and due to this was exiled to the surface, which is a serious punishment, as remaining in the Hollow Earth allows the Shiuk to remain practically immortal, whereas banishment to the surface will result in an eventual death from aging, as all humans eventually face. The Shiuk are not the only alien race in the Hollow Earth, however, as there is another alien people within the Hollow Earth known as the Sinine. The Sinine, like the Shiuk,
cone
are
heads.
humanoids with large heads.
I've seen that movie.
However, their heads are coned. The Sinine are led by one King Lamsa, who has a daughter named Princess Lucina. He also has a son named Prince Atif. There's also a third race living within the Hollow Earth known as the Samin, who are grotesquely fat, human-elephant hybrid creatures that are created from grafting the evil from the Sinine. And due to this relationship, the Sinine people are responsible for quelling and policing the Samin, as they are a very violent species. One day, the Samin attacked and raided Shiuk villages, stealing resources and food. Upon hearing this,
so the fat people went and robbed them for their food? Who made up this story, dog?
Fucor sent a telepathic message to King Lamsa, telling him that the Sinine were
a telepathic message. Wow, man. Can't believe people bought into this.
Their Samin wrangling duties and must drive them away from Shiuk lands. King Lamsa mobilized quickly and was able to drive out the Samin at Fucor's behest, although tensions between the tribes remained.
Bro, I don't even know.
Peace, Lamsa and Fucor decided to create a marriage pact, marrying Sinine Princess Lucina to King Fucor.
It sounds like a cool fantasy trope.
Lamsa's son Prince Atif.
But this is like real. This is real religion people follow and believe in. Oh shit! Did I click something? Oh my bad. Hold on. Oh, I muted it.
Cool.
Oh, here we go.
Shiuk Princess Rehia.
They believe in this shit though.
To Lamsa's son Prince Atif, which succeeded in creating a temporary peace. However, all was not well in the Agarthan Hollow Earth, as Lucina was deeply...
Honestly, the guy who wrote this little Nation of Islam Bible thing should have been a story writer. Because this is some shit Marvel could have put in or something. Or like some cool
marriage arrangement.
Theory.
She felt like an outcast among the Shiuk and hated their laws.
This is crazy.
And had a hatred for King Fucor. You know who else has a hatred for Fucor? That's right, his brother Yushak. For some reason, Fucor seems widely hated. Lucina and Yushak met, and through their shared hatred of Fucor...
these people with large heads lived in the middle of the center of Earth, along with the conehead people.
Began an affair behind his back.
Yeah.
They would meet at Amo's house on the surface to carry out this affair. With Amo,
I just clicked a random video and this popped up. I was like, alright, let's watch it.
And it is at this house where he was born. The man, the scientist, the demon, the demiurge,
I have no fucking
the
clue,
father
bro.
of all albinoids.
Bro,
YAKUB.
it's wild. It's fucking insanity.
YAKUB was no ordinary
The
child.
first one I
even
watched
for
was
a
even
Shia
crazier,
Qassim,
bro.
As his head was twice the size of a human's head. YAKUB also had 2 brains.
I'll watch it again after
massive
this
Shia
to
brain
show you.
capacity.
It's only like
YAKUB
6
himself
minutes.
would not live within the hollow earth, as his parents' affair was a great violation of Shia and Sunni laws and customs, forcing the new family to remain on the surface. So
How much is
YAKUB
this
spent
one?
his early
It's only
years
60
living in his
minutes.
uncle Ammo's house near modern-day Mecca, Saudi Arabia. Few core,
How do people know this story, which is crazy?
however, soon found out about this affair and sent his troops to the surface to find the family.
Sounds like a
and
video
had
game to me,
Yushak
to be
arrested
honest.
and put to death for
It's
his
kind of
actions.
crazy.
Lucina was allowed to live due to her now having a child to care for, but was barred from ever returning to the Hollow Earth.
So he got with a cone head.
Overwhelmed
Okay.
by these punishments, her new child, and the death of her lover, Lucina committed suicide, leaving YAKUB as an orphan in the care of his uncle Ammo. YAKUB's life is
Ammo.
already horrifically tragic, witnessing death and sorrow over things he has no control over, abandoned by his people and scorned by those on the surface. This is where the seeds of crackerdom are first sown. YAKUB,
Crackerdom.
traumatized by the death of his parents, develops a deep resentment of the Shi'uk people, and eventually begins to hate all peoples with dark complexions like the Shi'uk, seeing them all as responsible for his parents' deaths. YAKUB begins school at the age of 4, and at school YAKUB starts getting bullied for the immense
That's
size of his
school
head
in
and his
6,000
huge
years
ego,
ago?
hurting his self-esteem
And bullies?
making him hate the Ebenoid peoples even more, and deepening his desire for revenge.
I guess they live in the
At
same
age
earth, so
6,
why am I trying to
YAKUB,
logic
while
this
playing
shit?
with magnets and observing the laws of
Magnets.
attraction.
They know about the laws of attraction with magnets and 6,000. You know what? I'm not gonna reason with
Gets the
this.
idea to create a tribe of people that would exist as the antithesis to the Ebenoid surface humans. A tribe who would be cruel, deceptive, remorseless, and be lacking divinity, being a magnetic opposite.
This
of
is
the
like some black supremacy shit. This is crazy.
Ebenoid peoples who were divine, kind, and empathetic. YAKUB, floored by
Okay.
this idea, told his uncle, "Uncle, when I get to be an old man, I am going to make a people who shall rule you." YAKUB in this moment understood his life's terrible purpose, to make trouble, spread death and destruction, and be the enemy of all Ebenoid people, a vile demiurge to all those who walk the earth, with an army of demons at his back. In order to accomplish this,
This is
YAKUB
crazy.
understood that he must become a master of genetics, biology, and science. Fortunately for YAKUB, his double brains made him a child prodigy, and he was outperforming all the surface humans in school. By age 18, YAKUB had completed all colleges and universities of his nation. While at these colleges, YAKUB was mockingly referred to as the big head
Yeah,
scientist
right?
who com-
They'll make him Asian. You're like, he's a Chinese man who lived in center of the planet and created white people.
probably figure out why. While in college, YAKUB developed and began preaching a new religion he created,
Don't let
simply
you
known
yourself
as
do this.
tricknology.
Fuck yeah,
He also
right?
wrote a holy book of
Enzio goes back 6,000 years and meets YAKUB.
tricknology, called Tricknology 120 Degrees.
Oh
YAKUB
my
promised
god.
all those who followed Tricknology would eventually come to rule the earth for
I mean, it
6,000
sounds like
years
it'd be
and
like,
have
I mean, if it's like less racism in it, it sounds like it'd be a cool story at the beginning with the whole planet blowing up and reforming and making a hollow earth that people lived in and then exiling and kings and shit. That sounds like a cool movie trope, just minus the racism, I think.
complete dominion over the peoples of Earth.
The
While he
racism
was
kinda
ultimately
ruins
correct
it.
In this prophecy, those who followed YAKUB at the time were
This is a
oblivious to
sci-fi
the dark
film.
truth of the prophecy and YAKUB's real plans for them. Tricknology became quite
Dude who
popular
wrote this little Bible fucking got into the long line of work. He should have been a scriptwriter.
as time went by, with many people starting to follow YAKUB, as they were deeply impressed with his teachings and immense knowledge.
Trickology.
The boys who once bullied and looked down on him now wanted to follow him, and the women who once scorned and mocked YAKUB now wanted that Kub hammer.
Yeah, bro, it's
Tricknology
crazy,
became
man.
such a powerful movement amongst the surface humans.
And they lived in
even
Saudi
the king of
Arabia.
the surface humans became intimidated by the threat it posed. They began to persecute the followers of Tricknology, throwing all followers of Tricknology into prison along with YAKUB
Tricknology.
himself. However, Tricknologist's numbers had grown
Tricking
too large,
people with
and there weren't
technology,
enough prisons to
Tricknology.
hold them all. Realizing that he was out of options, the king went to YAKUB's cell to offer him a deal. "So you are Mr. YAKUB?" "Yes, I am." The king then asked YAKUB what he would accept in exchange for ending the continued spread of Tricknology. YAKUB told him that if he provided enough food, materials, and other necessities to build a civilization for 20 years, YAKUB would spend that time building up a self-sufficient Tricknologist civilization, and after the 20 years, would leave with his followers to distant lands. The king, eager to contain the spread of YAKUB's doctrine, agreed to these terms and provided for YAKUB and his followers for the 20 years. And when that time had passed, the king loaded YAKUB and all his followers onto ships and sent them off into exile. At the time of disembarkment, the trichnologists numbered 59,999.
That's a very specific number. That's crazy.
Making 60,000 total people across 100 ships, about 600 people per ship. Departing near modern-day Mecca, they sailed south through the Red Sea to travel around Africa, heading towards their destination of the Isle of Patmos.
60,000 people 6,000 years ago did that on fucking boats. Get the fuck out of here.
Navigate the continent. It was on this long voyage that YAKUB began the second phase of his plan to create his devil race.
Who the fuck really believes this?
And human breeding experiment. YAKUB began to favor followers with lighter complexions and began having children with the women in his following. Babies born with lighter complexions were spared, while the darker ones were thrown overboard. YAKUB's plan to create an albinoid people was in motion.
So he's like racist against his own people. What the fuck is this? And people were like, yes, I follow this. This is great.
YAKUB's followers
I like this idea. I'll go with you.
Learned that he was killing babies in a demented breeding program. 95% of his followers lost their faith in YAKUB, apparently no longer wishing to follow a giga-brained baby-killing scientist.
Yeah.
The now disillusioned followers jumped ship and swam to Africa as they sailed around it, spreading the ebenoid population across the continent, where they would remain to this day.
That's how Africans were spread around Africa. This guy's like the seed of black people.
Only 5% of
from space, who was born in the center of the earth. Oh my god.
Devoted followers remained, leaving only around 3,000 who reached Patmos with YAKUB.
It all makes sense.
New king of Patmos, YAKUB, established a despotic regime dedicated to the creation of his new white race. He set up birth control and Planned Parenthood laws to speed up his eugenics program, commonly referred to as grafting. Only lighter-skinned followers were allowed to have children, and darker-skinned followers were just summarily executed.
Wow.
When a child was born with a skin tone too dark for YAKUB's liking, they were killed by having their heads pricked with sharp needles as soon as they were born. However, this wasn't enough for YAKUB, as his goal was nothing short of the total annihilation of the ebenoid peoples. The corpses of the killed babies would be fed to wild beasts.
So this guy was hated on by other black people, decided to take a bunch of black people who believed in this motherfucker because he tricked them, took them around the fucking continent of Africa. A lot of motherfuckers was like, I'm woke, I don't want to do this shit, I'm out, boom, bounce. And then the people who do stay, he's just killing them until they turn with lighter skin.
And if no wild beasts could be found to feed them...
This like that Dr. Umar shit, bro. That's what this is.
The babies would just be incinerated instead. Damn. YAKUB continued this process for many years, tutoring his grafted offspring to continue his work. YAKUB eventually passed away at the age of 150, but his loyal followers continued...
150? That's... with no health care? Oh, they must have crazy science. It's crazy science. I forgot.
His work. After 200 years, the followers of YAKUB on Patmos had evolved into a red-skinned people known as the Rubidoid tribe. After another 200 years, the Rubidoid tribe had again evolved, this time into a yellow-skinned people known as the Citrinoid tribe.
So we got the Native Americans and the Asians. So we got the red-skinned people, and we got the yellow-skinned people. We got okay.
Finally, another 200 years later, the people on Patmos had evolved into YAKUB's desired people, the Albinoid tribe. These albinoids were inherently wicked,
white people.
The evilness that Father YAKUB had held his entire life. The albinoids,
what is wrong with these people?
Imbued with the power of trichnology, returned to the city where YAKUB and his original 59,999 followers had left 600 years ago. In only 6 months, they began causing chaos and war amongst the ebenoid people. This was around 6000 BC. The king of the ebenoids knew that these people were of YAKUB's creation. It is unclear if this was the same king who sent away YAKUB, which would make him well over 600 years old. The king rounded up the albinoids and stripped them of their clothing. However, their nakedness was unsightly, so they put some aprons back on them to cover them up. The king's armies then marched the albinoids across the scorching deserts of the Middle East and into the Caucasus Mountains of southeastern Europe, where they were driven into caves and kept there by bands of patrolling soldiers. The albinoids lived in the mountains and caves for 2,000 years. 2,000 years of a brutal, uncivilized existence.
What kind of racist ass shit is this?
In the mountains made
this is racism. This is like on both. This is like I'm like what?
Albinoids very beast-like in nature, with them developing wild, inhuman behaviors.
Okay.
They walked around nude, wore animal skins in the winter, and grew hair all over their bodies like beasts. They even befriended the beasts, taming wolves and dogs to live in the caves with them, with dogs even becoming valued family members and best friends of the Albinoids. At some point, a group of Albinoids attempted to graft themselves back into an Ebenoid tribe. However, this process failed, and the Albinoids who attempted this process became gorillas.
What? Wait, what?
As you can see, these
They just turned into gorillas? Where? No explanation? They just turned into gorillas?
Albinoids
What the
were
fuck
clearly
is this?
and were more beast than man. A man named Moses, yes, the biblical Moses.
The
was sent
Moses,
to civilize
okay.
them.
Moses.
Moses led them out of the caves and attempted to clothe and civilize them. However, once they were out, Moses realized that the Albinoids were too barbaric and beastly, and gave up on them, blowing up 300 of the most unruly Albinoids with dynamite. However,
They had dynamite? What? They had nitroglycerin. 6,000 years ago? 'Cause that's what dynamite is. Nitroglycerin. And then it has a stabilizer in it so it doesn't explode. Nitroglycerin is very volatile. If you bump it wrong, it blows up. But that's crazy. That's
it
insane.
was too late, and the Albinoids had already been unleashed. They killed Moses and began
They had dynamite. Okay,
rampaging
thanks for
across the
confirming that,
known world,
Lobera.
conquering
I wasn't
the
sure.
Ebenoid peoples using
I wasn't sure.
technology, which used the Albinoids' lack of empathy and emotion, along with their natural affinity for lies and deception to bring the world to heel before them, building up their
What the
empires
fuck
of
is
violence, colonizing and subjugating the Ebenoids of the world for their own nefarious gains,
Okay.
and inventing machines and tools to cause further death and destruction. Thus,
Cracker Barrel's diabolical. Yeah, they really rebranded Cracker Barrel not to be less country, which is
fulfilling
funny.
YAKUB's original
In certain areas, it's down south is still classic Cracker Barrel. They couldn't rebrand that shit.
promise of 6,000 years of global domination
Not there. That's
to
like
those
their
who followed
favorite place to
him,
go.
leading us up to where we are in the modern day. This is just one version of the story of YAKUB, however,
There's more
as YAKUB
versions?
himself has been interpreted in many different ways. One claim is that YAKUB is in fact one and the same with the biblical Jacob, as YAKUB is the Arabic variant of the name Jacob, and Jacob and YAKUB were both leaders of new people, with Jacob being
Jacob, Yakub, Jacob. Okay, I kind of see where they kind of went with it. They had gunpowder, yeah, but like, I guess we can make dynamite out of gunpowder, but it's not really, it's not dynamite, you know, like dynamite like we know today, which is nitroglycerin with like a stabilizer in it.
original patriarch
I think they used I forgot what they used to stabilize it. I can't remember the name, what they use. Like hardens it.
of the early Israeli tribes, and YAKUB being the
Nitroglycerin
father
is
of the
liquid,
created
but that's
Albinoid
crazy.
tribe.
They had like
Malcolm X even
blowing
went
kids with gunpowder. How much gunpowder do you have to have? That's crazy. They did have gunpowder though, I guess.
farther with this interpretation, reinterpreting the famous story of Jacob wrestling with an angel to YAKUB wrestling with the king of the Ebenoid tribe to secure resources to begin his baby-slaying eugenics.
So it's just the Bible translated in a racial way.
Patmos.
Okay.
However, he also goes on to say that the biblical character of John of Patmos is YAKUB as well, saying that John was creating a new race on Patmos like YAKUB, which obfuscates the role of YAKUB even further. As to the true origin of YAKUB, Ernest Allen argues that YAKUB may have been inspired by a real historical event during the conflict between Muslims and Christians over the control of Spain in the 12th century. Muslim leader Abu Yusuf Yaqub al-Mansur defeated the Franks at the Battle of Alarcos in 1195. After the battle, 40,000 Europeans were captured and taken to Morocco to work as slaves for Yaqub's building projects. After a while, the prisoners were set free and were allowed to settle between the Moroccan cities of Fez and Marrakesh. Another source from Yusuf Nuruddin says that the story of YAKUB may have come from the doctrine of the Yakubites, taught by the Moorish Science Temple, which Fard Muhammad had probably belonged to before starting the Nation of Islam. That teaches that some pre-Columbian civilizations were founded by a West African Moor named YAKUB, who had landed on the Yucatan Peninsula, where the Yakubites evolved into a large-headed race of scientific geniuses, kind of like our friends of the Shia, which is used as an explanation for why artifacts such as the Olmec heads had African features. It could be possible that this story was adapted to the current story of YAKUB by Fard and later expanded upon by Elijah Muhammad. The story of YAKUB isn't without its issues, however, even within the Nation of Islam. Malcolm X, as mentioned before, was for a time a proponent and believer in the story of YAKUB. However, following his pilgrimage to the Middle East, he rejected the story of YAKUB and denounced the teachings of Elijah Muhammad as extremely limited in a form of racist zealotry, which stood against his now traditional and more compassionate Islamic beliefs. Elijah Muhammad's successor, Warith Din Muhammad, rejected the story almost immediately, trying to pivot the Nation of Islam away from the Yaqubian story to a mainstream Sunni Islam religion. However, later on, Louis Farrakhan reinstated the original Fard Muhammad and Elijah Muhammad-led Yaqubian doctrine and reasserted his belief in the story of Yaqub, which brings us to today, where the story of Yaqub is still put forth by the Nation of Islam as the truth on the origins of the white race created by their great evil father, Yaqub, the big-headed scientist.
Insane.